Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. We're in regular session tonight on Monday, October 15th, and the time is 7 p.m. Our first item of business is to establish a quorum, and all members of council are here tonight. Next item of business is disposition of the minutes for the regular session held on October 1, 2018. I have a motion for approval of these minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the minutes have been approved. We have time for communications. Yes, Councilmember Fall.
I just want to say a thank you to the Affordable Housing Commission that has been doing a huge amount of work lately. They hit the ground running, and I have been getting really nice reports, and I wanted to say thank you to everybody.
It's great. It's encouraging. Thank you. Communications from any other council members? Yes, Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if I mentioned it this month already, but I have the opportunity to mention it again, that the Athens City School Board will be meeting, their October board meeting is this Thursday, 10/18, 6:30 p.m. at the Athens High School Auditorium.
Okay, great. Any other council members? Okay, we'll move on to reports and communications from other elected officials. Law Director Eliason. Auditor Hecht. Yes. Thank you. That's okay.
I just want to report briefly on our audit for this year. Overall, things went really well. We didn't have a management letter, which has happened before, and that's where they let us know things that we should improve, what's going on, but they're not major items. And however, we did have two findings within our audit. The management letters aren't distributed. We send them to council members, but they aren't distributed, and they're not on the auditor's website. They're public records, and you can request them, but a finding is actually in the audit. We had two issues. They're bookkeeping issues, and the first one has to do with the general fund balance. You all understand about appropriations and encumbrances and carryover funds. So we have an accounting firm that we've had for a very long time. The county uses them, and they're great. They forgot to subtract the encumbrances because because of our bookkeeping, the fund, it's not an accrual basis, it's a cash basis. So what they do is they combine our information into more of an accrual basis reporting called general ledger, and that's what the state audits. So when they were reporting our carryover in the general fund, they didn't subtract the encumbrances, which is money that's spoken for. At the end of the year, that's money that will be used to pay bills for that year that might not come in until January of the next year. Gas, electric, telephone, a lot of bills like that. So that one was about $200,000, and that was a bookkeeping error, human error, probably won't happen again. The second one had to do with accounts payable, which was kind of on my office, but it's one of those accounting things that has evolved over the years, things like the threshold for bidding and stuff like that. And so projects are always kind of an issue in tracking the money because they very often go over into 2 years and can be 3 and 4 for us often. And so that money that we counted as payables for the next year that were connected to the year before, like when we know the project's going to be $1 million, the only part of the work's done, we paid out $500,000 in the current year, and we know we're going to pay out more the next year. That's considered a payable because we know we're going to get billed for that. When a year-end bill came in that was dated December 31st, so the auditors would have considered that. It should have been with that other issue of where the money should have been taken out of last year's budget and not considered a payable for 2018. That amount was $597,000. And as our auditor said, if it wasn't for the amounts, those are the kinds of things that would get put in a management letter, but those are fairly high amounts, and so they became findings. So does anybody have any questions? I don't know if anybody bothered to look on that last page of the audit that shows findings, and
It's good to have your explanation, because I did read through the report, and I read through the second page, and I was still kind of scratching my head
know
at you, and
you
I had an
did.
email back and forth about it.
I know.
I appreciate your reporting to us. I know an audit preparation takes a lot of time, so I
It
thank
does.
you and your staff for
They were
that.
accounting issues. Oh, yeah. It's an awful lot of work. We prepare hundreds of reports and files for the accountants who prepare our financial statements for the auditors to audit, and then they come in, and we have to let them pour through our files and our pay-ins and tax files, all that kind of stuff. And so they're accounting errors, and we will all be on the lookout that this doesn't happen again next year.
Appreciate it. Yes, okay. Thank you so much. And Mayor Patterson, communications.
A few items in terms of updates, in particular on the East State Street, US 33 East State Street project. And that is the contractor's current goal is to begin milling and paving operations on State Street starting October 22nd. And they're expecting, and all this is weather dependent, as council knows, and hopefully the viewing audience knows as well, is they're hoping to have the on-ramp to 33/50 open by this Thursday. But again, some of that is weather dependent. So hopefully things are on track there. Another real quick update, and that is for Highland Park. Highland Park, if they haven't done so already, they're going to start removing the old playground equipment. And they have been working for a while now on ADA accessibility in the parking lot area, as well as a ramp going up to the playground itself. So once again, another future fully ADA accessible park element here in the city of Athens. And that said, I just forgot one other thing to bring up. I apologize, and that is that the renovations in Arts West, the lower level of Arts West, those are completed. It looks really nice down there. I encourage council to take a look when you get a chance. And they anticipate having the railing on the ADA ramp on the parking lot side of Arts West completed by the 29th. Or the rail is in place and it becomes a fully functional ADA accessible ramp.
Great. And it does. It looks great. Arts West does. Okay. Yes, Member Crowell, excuse me.
Highland Park, I think, has a sidewalk now that goes all the way up to the new playground equipment, but is there's older playground equipment next to it?
And they're removing the older playground equipment, correct.
Okay.
There was some other walkway issues at Highland Park that had to be addressed as well.
Okay, maybe getting from the
poured
parking lot or
concrete
something.
walkway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good.
Member Reisner.
I'd like to ask
Yes,
Mayor a
sure,
question.
sure.
Is the street paving and repairs project completed now for the season? Or is there more to be done?
Well, the US 33
No,
East
I
State.
mean our streets, like.
No, we were talking about that at my safety meeting this morning, and there's still working going on Columbia, North Lancaster, in that area. I think there's also some curb repair or curb replacement that's going to be taking place on Spring. So there's still some punch list items out there for the repaving, but by and large, once again, a lot of repaving throughout the city is taking place.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll move on now to ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 10218, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract to lease/purchase smart parking meters, introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. At this time, I would like to amend 102-18.
Second.
And let me go through and read let me read it the way it was in section 1, the way it originally read. currently is, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to enter into a contract for the lease purchase of smart parking meters for a 5-year term effective January 1, 2019 through January 1, 2024, with the lowest and best bidder advertised pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 735.05. The administration has requested that we strike with the lowest and best bidder advertised and change the Ohio Revised Code to 9.4048 joint purchasing programs. And this would be something that we will discuss next Monday at committee.
Okay.
This joint purchasing program, which I hope to learn about next week.
Should we maybe table it?
Well,
instead of, because how are we amending it? What are we putting?
Well, what we're doing is striking striking the word.
And it'll go back to first read.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for amending Ordinance 10218. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the ordinance has been amended and considered read for the first time, and we will have some further information then at the committee meeting. Okay.
All right.
Ordinance 10318 is an ordinance amending certain sections of the Athens City Code, Title 7, Traffic Code, Chapter 7.05, Parking Regulations, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 10318.
Second.
Thank you. We've discussed this multiple times. Paul Logue has come in to show and talk about the different metrics that support the change of various parking regulations, such as time and zoning for different value of parking meters. Uptown, there's some good data that has shown that we do need to keep people moving through the street level parking, and that we need to get people to our parking garage because it is being underutilized. So, and there is some talk about stuff we can do in the parking garage to make it more user-friendly. So, thank you.
We have a motion and second for approval of 10318. Are there any comments or questions from council members? Councilmember Crowell.
I'm curious about the connection between the ordinance we just tabled and this one. Without approving the city service director to go into the contract for the new meters,
we can still change the hours and everything. You could change the hours with the meters we have now. So it's more of hours and enforcement. And this is more software.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
Hours, as well as, regardless of the ordinance that was just tabled, we are looking to put smart meters on Court Street, so this legislation would still go forward with that element as well, with ways in which someone can pay the meter.
Right, if I understand correctly, the meters that we have now, the smart meters that we have now are temporary, correct? It's a pilot program. So if we weren't to go ahead with the contract, we would go back to our old meters, which would not be able to do this.
Correct, but our intent is to move forward with smart meters in the uptown area with new meter heads.
Right, if the first ordinance passes.
We can, if the first ordinance doesn't pass, this can still be on the books, and then when we do decide to go through with smart metering, it would be already on the books to go forward.
Okay, as long as everybody understands, I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Okay, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. I just wanted to share a couple thoughts that I have regarding this and acknowledge that I do support facets of it. For instance, it acknowledges that provisions related to on-street parking meters shall not apply on Sundays or holidays. And then there was a change, I want to remind folks, there was a change about the time frame. It says, or on other days between the hours of strikeout, 6 p.m., now changed to 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. So I support the Sundays and holidays, but I do have some concerns about the challenges that may exist with the 8 p.m. But I'm wondering if we should have if we should acknowledge the ability to change that on nights of city council to make it accessible for people who want to attend public meetings.
I think the hope with the 8 o'clock is that there will actually be more meters available for people who are coming into town. I understand that there are, if having then have to pay metered price, I understand that. And whether we do a floor up in the parking garage or something, but I think that the change from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. overall is a good, it's a good thing for Uptown and trying to get people to not park there who are employees. And this is something that we have been, a lot of data and stuff has kind of supported this. So I'm reluctant to change it. Maybe that's something we can talk with the administration, because it sounds more like an administration sort of act.
Thank you. I do also support other aspects which I think are forward-thinking, such as the altered meters, some meters being 15 or 20-minute limitations, and other meters being hour, 2 hour, and then all-day meters. So I do like that as well, which is written in here. So I just wanted to share those thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Councilmember McGee.
Thank you. I share the same concerns as Councilmember Butler in regards to the time change for the meters. I've had numerous citizens come up to me and voice their concern about it. Most of them are low-income students or workers who see this as a real imposition upon them to suddenly have to pay more meters on a regular basis for their employment or for their work or even their school. I also am concerned by the fact that when we had the initial presentation, I believe it was pointed out that this was not the purpose of this was not to raise money for the city. The purpose of it was to basically deal with some situations and to pay for the meters themselves. And I'm concerned the fact that we don't know the cost of these proposed meters, and yet we're doing this that would basically raise rates for all the citizens. I'm concerned with the fact that this 6 to 8 increase still has the 2-hour limit, so that if somebody comes in and they want to do something at 5 o'clock and they're uptown, it's been pointed out to me that that could be a real inconvenience for them if they have to get to the meter. Now, I understand under the new system, they may be able to do it by phone or by credit card or whatever, and I tried to explain that to some of the citizens, but some of the older citizens like myself were not very pleased with it by any means. So I am concerned with the fact that I don't see any real need for the change in the sense of raising the rates. I don't see the need for the change in changing those hours. I think the other aspects of the ordinance I support fully, the fact that it's going over to the kind of system that would enable citizens to pay those meters much easier. I like the aspect of the ordinance that would change to zones that would have more frequently used zones, and I won't even mention the certain zones that are omitted from this particular ordinance. However, I mean, those are my concerns, and I certainly feel that they still need to be addressed. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, thank you. And I'm in support of this. I don't think that I have anything that I specifically want to say against it. I took a temperature about what other cities are charging, and it really ranged from anywhere from this is per hour, anywhere from $0 to $1. And then, looking at those specific cities, kind of looking at where their how much use was in their uptown area. That was usually when you had 0. That they were really encouraging people to come uptown because there wasn't, or downtown, or whatever the town was called. And it was to encourage people to frequent that area. We don't have that problem here. We have more of a it's inverted, where we have a lot of high volume traffic, and you still have the opportunity to actually go anywhere. There's a range that you can pay depending on what zone you park in. So I like that idea that if you don't like paying $1 per hour, find a different zone and walk a block or two. I don't think that is the biggest imposition. So I applaud administration for the work that they've done on the parking studies and really looking at this and challenging the status quo, because I think this was something that we've been living with for a long time. So I think it was a good time to revisit and do this.
Okay. Councilmember Butler, before we come back to you, I'm going to see if any other council members want to comment. Yes, Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Nisley. I just wanted to also offer my support for this. I feel that our city planner has done a really thorough job of studying the parking situation and has looked at it very carefully and really thought about what would best support the businesses and the users of the spaces uptown. And well, we have to acknowledge we can't offer the perfect situation for every possible imagined use of the spaces. I think that this is an excellent plan to try to improve services for everyone, and I really think that there are a lot of opportunities to park in the garage for extended periods of time. And so if people need a space close to Court Street and want to be able to park for several hours, whether during the day or in the evening time, there is space available there. And so I think making sure we remind residents of that availability is a good thing to do in conjunction with this change. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reisner.
I'll just say I support this. Let it go at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I do think favorably of 99% of the material in this. I have been approached by citizens who don't feel safe parking in the parking garage. I agree that we're underutilizing our parking garage, and I think that advertising that and communicating that in a more succinct, effective manner will be beneficial to citizens and visitors alike. But I do think it's something that we should be mindful of is the fact that there are people who don't feel safe parking in the parking garage in the evenings, and to get creative or to think about how we can address that on some level. So I do want to offer that. Thank you.
There are security cameras in the garage that are operating 24 hours a day.
Mayor Patterson.
But since you brought up parking garage, it's not part of this ordinance at all. However, since you brought it up, I think I should probably jump into that space. That we are looking at ways of improving the parking garage aesthetically on the inside to where we brighten things up through lighting and or painting or both. And color coding the levels so people know what level they're on, as opposed to just a numbering scheme, which works. But anyway, working through that, and I do want to remind the public that the parking garage will be less expensive than the change to the street, and that we do have a large number of parking spaces on a regular basis within the parking garage. There are aberrant days when it's full, but that tends to be rare these days, unless there's a big event going on in the city. And then we also realize that what we need to do is make sure that people know that the parking garage is not for city employees only, that it is a city parking garage. It is a parking garage for everybody. It's a public parking garage. And also better signing availability of parking spaces, because we've heard through the study that that's an issue as well, that people feel that They don't want to venture into the 6-story parking garage because they don't know if there's going to be a parking space. And I believe it's probably within the first 3 floors. If they don't find one, then they get frustrated and give up, as opposed to, venturing on up to where we typically see more open spaces. But there are a lot of choices in the parking garage. I would also contend, once again, that, for the increased parking enforcement on the street, to extend it to 8 p.m., when we extended to 6 p.m., one of the things we learned right away was how many employees were parking at those meters up until 6, because they figured, well, I can, parking enforcement ends at time X, and therefore I can park in front of my place of business, to which, in talking to business owners, some of them were rather shocked that their employees were actually parking there, as opposed to letting people cycle off those meters, which is the intent of metered parking. The intent of metered parking in any municipality is to help cycle people off of the parking spaces, so that your whether it's a business district or a retail district, whatever, so that customers can roll in and roll out. I agree with you, Member McGee, and whoever else it was that mentioned. I'm hopeful that some other businesses that typically shutter come 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock will venture into the world. Last thing is, and again, this has been brought up, the smart meters these days accept coin, card, debit card, pass cards, or cards you can get at the city building. Plus, there's the various phone apps that are associated with a lot of the smart meters. So I've heard the same thing. I've heard individuals sitting there going, I like being able to use coin. These meters accept coin. They just don't accept dollar bills.
Okay. I'm going to move on to comments from the audience. Is there anybody who'd like to make a comment? Yes, Ms. Roman. If you could give us your name and address, and if you represent a group.
I don't represent a group. Judith Roman, 12 Northwood Drive, Athens, Ohio. And as I've said the last 2 times, I disagree with the 8 o'clock parking. I think it should stay at 6 o'clock. And as far as people, well, first of all, I'm going to address the parking garage. I won't go in that parking garage. And if it's going to be fixed up, I think it should be fixed up and be safe before you change it till 8 o'clock. Because people don't want to go in there. I mean, I've talked to people, they don't want to go in there. They don't think it's safe, especially women don't want to go in there. As far as changing it to 8 o'clock, I have not talked to one person who agrees with that. In fact, one person told me they thought the city was greedy. So that's kind of what people are saying out there. I don't know what council people are hearing, but no one that I know of agrees with the 8 o'clock time. And then when you talk about people that are working in the different businesses, where are they supposed to park? They can't park on the street. If you don't have wait staff, you can't have a restaurant.
Okay.
So that part I just don't understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience who has comments? Okay. So we have a motion and second for approval of 10318. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay. The motion carries 6-1, and the ordinance is approved. We'll move on now to Ordinance 10518, and this is an ordinance amending the 2018 staffing levels authorized by Ordinance 15117 and declaring an emergency.
Sorry, my microphone's
Councilmember Reisner, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I move that we adopt 10518.
Second.
Basically, we're taking a position of custodian and changing the fund from which that person is being paid from, since their duties are split between our recreation department and the community center. So we're making an adjustment so that their salary is pulled out of the most appropriate fund.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and second for approval of 10518. All those in favor say, are there any other questions or comments? Excuse me, first. Okay, from either council members or the audience. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We have several ordinances, for second reading, several of which will be suspended tonight because of time pressures that we have. Ordinance 10618 is an ordinance granting a revocable license to Cameron Fuller, owner, 97 Columbus Road, to allow an existing concrete pad to encroach on the city right-of-way. It's introduced by Councilmember Fall. Ordinance 10718 is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $323,411 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes previously issued for the purpose of paying part of the cost of acquiring a new pumper truck and related equipment and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules for 10718.
Second.
The reason for the suspension is that the notes for the payment are due, I believe, October the 19th, which is very close. So in order to meet our payment date, we'll need to suspend.
Okay, we have a motion and second for suspending the rules on 10718. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
I make a motion to adopt 10718.
Second.
We've discussed this. We are paying a debt on our what we consider the new pumper truck. We're paying down $100,000, and now so we'll be left with a debt of $323,411. We will have notes borrowed from our local banking. I'm not quite sure which bank it'll be, but do we know?
Yeah, we're all set to go with Hocking Valley.
Hocking Valley, okay.
Okay.
All right.
And so we have a motion and second. Before we take the vote, could I have everybody double check their phones to turn off the dingers? Somebody's getting text messages, and it's just a little distracting. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, any comments from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 10818 is an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
I don't believe this has to be suspended. Just to be sure.
I believe it does.
It does?
What's Debbie say?
The other.
Any comments from the clerk?
This is no transportation. I don't know that we need.
Not from my office.
No.
Okay.
No, so
Okay.
if we don't need it for the
Okay.
parking garage debt fund transfer for the parking
It's not
garage,
due till December.
then we don't need to suspend this one.
Okay. However, the next one,
The next one we do.
the next series are for Halloween, and unfortunately, because of approaching deadlines, we will need to suspend these series of ordinances.
They're not mine.
10918 is an ordinance banning parking and closing that portion of Court Street from Mulberry to Carpenter on October 26, 27, and 28, 2018, in anticipation of a large number of people converging on downtown Athens on Halloween weekend and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. I would like to suspend the rules for 109-18.
Second.
And like President Nisley said, time is of the essence as Halloween is fast approaching, and this is the last council meeting prior to the festivities.
Okay. So a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The rules have been suspended.
President Nisley, I would like to adopt ordinance 109-18.
Second.
And this is the first in a series of 4 ordinances that will clear the way for Court Street to be reimagined as Halloween on October 26th, 27th, and 28th. That's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And let me just read this section 1. This is to ban parking on Court Street from Mulberry to Carpenter, so from end to end, and other essential intersecting streets on October 26th, 27th, and 28th, 2018 as necessary. This will close to vehicular traffic. This is Court Street from Mulberry to Carpenter and essential streets. And then the last point is to employ, as necessary, uniformed members of the Athens City Police Department and other city employees to preserve the peace and other public orders. So I want to thank them in advance for the efforts that they will be putting forth.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of this ordinance 10918. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All right, we'll proceed with a vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance is approved with that motion. Ordinance 11018 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Section 13.04.10, unnecessary noise for scheduled bandstand performances hosted by the Clean and Safe Halloween Committee on October 27 and 28, which is Halloween weekend, and declaring an emergency. Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, I would like to suspend the rules for 110-18.
Second.
And same reason.
Okay. Motion to suspend. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended.
Thank you. I would like to adopt ordinance 110-18.
Second.
And this ordinance is to suspend our noise ordinance, so it'll allow the bandstands to play on. And we had Brandon Thompson in last week from the Clean and Safe Halloween Committee, and he mentioned that there was no huge changes this year. So we look forward to them doing a good job on this part of our city history.
Okay. All right, we've got a motion and second for approval of 110-18.
President Isley?
Yes, Mayor Patterson.
Just a real quick comment. There is one change to the stage location this year. I don't know if Brandon Thompson did mention that.
He did mention that, yes.
Fine,
Yep.
good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So motion and second to approve. All those in favor? Oh, and any other comments before we move on? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 11118, an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Chapter 11.04, vending, peddling, and soliciting to allow vending in a designated area on October 27 and 28, 2018, Halloween weekend, and declaring an emergency. Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, I would like to suspend the rules for ordinance 111-18.
Second.
And it's the same, yes, deadlines, exactly. Thank you.
A motion, we have a motion and second to suspend. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended.
I would like to adopt ordinance 111-18.
Second.
And this is the special vending atmosphere that we will set up for Halloween, and I would stress to vendors that are thinking about vending in the uptown area during this weekend that they have until October 24th by 4 p.m. to contact the code office, the code enforcement office, to learn the details, sign up, and be registered to vend.
Okay. Have motion and second to approve ordinance 111-18. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Crowell.
Just one question on being new to council since last Halloween. How many vendors pay the $50 fee to have electric? Is that a common? Do we know? I mean, and is this provided through the light poles?
It is. It does come, or some bring their own generators, but
they don't. That doesn't pay the fee, right? I mean, that's.
I can speak to it. It's about half, I think.
Is it really that many?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a city-owned power drop at Court and Union, and a city-owned power drop at Court and State, and then we'll run a panel and set it up for folks to plug into. And then there are others who have their own generators, and that's how they operate their buggy. There is a change to state fire code as it relates to spacing of vendors, and we're going to be enforcing that this year when we lay out the setup there. And so there may be, because of the spacing, a little bit farther spacing in between vendors, that there might be a couple more that will choose, rather than run cables, that will choose to run off of a generator.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So we have a motion and second to approve this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11218 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Section 7.05.26C, regulation of city parking garage rates on October 26, 27, and 28, Halloween weekend, and declaring an emergency. Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I would like to suspend Ordinance 112-18.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Rules have been suspended.
Thank you. I would like to adopt Ordinance 112-18.
Second.
And this final one in our set for Halloween weekend, which is October 26th, 27th, and 28th, this will suspend the regulation, the enforcement of the city parking garage rates, so that those will be suspended on October 26th, 27th, and 28th, 2018, Halloween weekend.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 112-18. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The ordinance is approved. We now have some ordinances for first reading, and I believe several of these will also, because of deadlines, need to be suspended. 113-18 is an ordinance establishing East Park Drive as a new public right-of-way, and this is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. We talked about this during committee. We also have a map, right? Do we have the map? If we have the map, we can put it up. This is down by the new pool and area between the sewage treatment plant and the pool and all that area where the road is. And we would like to establish a new public right-of-way because of the amount of needed services that are already in place in that area. Most of the services do not follow the road, so that wouldn't be a very good way of going forward with trying to capture these so that they can be mapped, and that they have to come to city and the city council and the administration to be able to do certain things within that right of way.
And we see a map with a general location on the street rights now. Council members have been provided with a copy of the plat map as well. So,
right. But it doesn't have anything to do with the sign.
No, right. It's just the right of way at this point that we're discussing.
Ignore that part.
Okay.
So, do you have anything else to add to that particular
Sure,
description?
I can speak to this. As many of you are aware, there's a new building that has been built at the office complex, kind of at the end of this proposed right of way. Currently, their access to East State Street, which is the public way or the public right of way that particular property fronts on, as far as having frontage on a public right of way, is via an easement granted in the early 1950s that goes through the middle of the city swimming pool. So in order to create a correct situation, we've proposed that East Park Drive, which has been a named street with addresses assigned on it for a couple decades now, actually be platted as a proper public right-of-way to be able to provide frontage for that new building that is back there. Additionally, should anything ever happen with the City Dog Park location on that side of town, this also would provide frontage for that parcel as well onto a proper public street called East Park Drive. The last benefit of making this change allows the city to grant permits to utility companies to locate along East Park Drive, as opposed to granting easements to those utility companies to locate there. The benefit to the city is that in the long term, should the city require those utility companies to relocate, those private companies to relocate, it would be at their expense if they're there by easement. However, if they're there by permit, they're there by easement, it would be at the city's expense for them to relocate. And this is not a problem for us here today. It's a problem for those of us sitting in these chairs 25 or 30 years from now. So we're trying to do the right thing by them. So that's the purpose of this request.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Crowell.
Does this impact the bike path in any way, and what kind of signage we're going to have there to protect people on the bike path?
It does not. This particular public right-of-way, it doesn't cross the bike path at all. The driveway that accesses the business that I was referring to does cross the bike path. There will be a revised easement that will come back before you that will, rather than have the access to a public road go through the city swimming pool and go out to East State Street, it will come out where the driveway actually runs right now across the corner of the community center property to East Park Drive. And that would be, the revised easement for how they cross how patrons for those businesses cross the bike path. Through our Title 41 process, we gave guidance to the owners of the building there, and they have to make some changes to their signage. And the word I got back from them today is that they're just waiting on fabrication of signs, and a couple more weeks, and they'll get those signs changed. Specifically, we directed them to implement a stop control on their driveway where it crosses the bike path, because in our opinion, the bikeway is the major route through there, and the driveway is a minor route, so it's appropriate for the driveway to be stop controlled.
Have we had any discussions about putting additional signage on the bikeway to warn bikers and pedestrians that they are coming to a point that the road crosses the bike path?
Right. Yes. If you want to get into the specifics, I can show you the direction that I gave to them. But right now, there are yield signs at this crossing on the bikeway itself. Those would be flipped so that there would be warning signs, the diamond warning, intersection of head slides,
right.
And then the stop signs would be moved to the driveway.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, Administration. Along the lines of thinking that Councilmember Crowell was asking, what ideally would you like to see for the stop control at that location, the signage or the stop control?
A proper MUTCD, OMUTCD R-1 sign, which is a full-size stop sign.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, thank you. So going back to the right-of-way, so is this just historically just cleaning up from the old airport? Is that just with that age?
The easement that the property was given to access East State Street back in the 50s was granted by Ohio University. Interestingly, it actually says that the owner of the underlying land would maintain it for the property owner to do so. And I'm assuming that was something that was necessary in order for the development of the airport, and that because the property owner that was on the other side of the railroad tracks or closer to the river at that time would be losing access. And so, in order for the airport to get bought, I'm just supposing that that's what occurred back then. Effectively, that's what we're doing, is we're cleaning that up.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Ordinance 11418 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 29, Housing Regulations, Chapter 29.22, Water System, Section 29.24, Water Heating Facilities, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. We talked about this last week also. This helps to update our regulations to be in line with the ORC about who is qualified to be able to install a water heater system in residential units.
Okay. And it is changing it from that they should be by licensed plumbers to following the manufacturer's instructions. Yes, Councilmember Reisner.
I just want to state again, as we discussed here last week, committee, I just don't think this is a good idea. I really don't. I think just as a matter of public safety, a licensed plumber should be the person who installs a hot water tank. I know there's a lot of gifted amateurs. I've watched this old house for 40 years. I've watched Norm and everybody do this, and there's lots of YouTube help videos out there, but no way would I be qualified to put in a hot water heater, especially a gas one, or even electric. I'd probably electrocute myself. We live in a city, you know, what happens in one house, you could say, well, that's my business, but it's really not. If I make a mistake installing it, I could burn my house down and maybe my neighbors too. So then it becomes a matter of public safety right there. So if something isn't broke, I say we don't fix it. I don't see a need here at all. And when this comes up for a vote, I'll be voting against it. So I recommend other council people do the same.
Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, thank you. I just have one question. I wanted to connect with Code Office Director Rick Sorois, and I've yet to do that. But I had a question about. So as a homeowner, what other building things can I and can I not do? Could I build an addition? Can I do my own electrical? Can I do my own roofing? Is a water tank the only thing that we are not allowed to do?
Mayor Patterson.
If I may.
Yes.
What is really interesting about this section of code is many years ago, we did license plumbers. I'm not sure if we licensed electricians as well, but we licensed a lot of the trades for home building. We don't do that anymore. And when we stopped doing that, a lot of code was changed to reflect that, to where it was stricken from code about having to have a license. This was one piece that stayed in, and it was not by intent that it was left in. It was an oversight, and it stuck in, and everyone now thinks, well, this is the only thing. Member Katsas, I agree with you. I have sat for, I won't say hours, minutes, pondering over, does this mean I can't replace the junction box in my house because I'm not a licensed electrician? Well, I can. Code doesn't tell me I can't. I could see equal peril, I guess, well, and I'm not an electrician, then I wouldn't do it anyway. But I think you get the idea, is that, Member Reisner, this is cleaning up code which was antiquated the minute it was left in to be something to where you had to be a licensed plumber after the city stopped licensing plumbers.
I understand that, but there's other licensing. There's state licensing. There's union licensing. I mean, there's other forms of certification to indicate that a person is qualified to do that sort of thing. Otherwise, you just have any Johnny-come-lately said, "Oh yeah, I can do that, no problem. Thank you for the money. I'm on my way." Thing catches on fire. Who do I sue? What do I do? What's my recourse?
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you for the comments.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. Anybody else have any comments tonight? As we introduce it, Councilmember Crowell.
Just to follow up, because I want to be clear on this, both for myself and for the public. I was under the impression that there were things that we could do in our own homes that we own, but that if we were going to hire somebody to come into our home to do electrical work, for example, they had to have a license. Is that incorrect?
It's a little bit more, it's a little grayer than that. I think for private residents, I think that you can have a lower level of capability, handyman service, that type of thing. Whereas a commercial grade work in a commercial business or a multifamily type business, you have to have a state license. Again, to the mayor's point, the state took away municipalities' authorities to license trades decades ago. Or certainly years ago, maybe not full decades, and this was a provision that when we updated our code, we didn't strike this one. The reason that we're asking for this change is because we are finding ourselves in the middle of battles between plumbing companies that we don't have the authority to regulate. And so this basically gets us out of the battle between those plumbing companies. And if you'd like to, I'd highly recommend you sat down and spoke to Co-Director Sorois, and he would give you all the gory details on some of the battles that he was pulled into on that. And this will allow us, and in many cases, the manufacturer's instructions say, certain conditions to be installed by a licensed plumber.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. We'll move on to ordinance 11518. This is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA federal local let project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the construction of a pedestrian crossing on Richland Avenue, project number 311, and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, at this moment, I would like to suspend the rules for ordinance 115-18.
Second.
And the reason is, once again, the administration would like to put this out to bid on October 31st, and so this is the last council meeting prior to that.
Okay. We have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Rules have been suspended.
President Nisley, thank you. I would like to adopt ordinance 115-18.
Second.
And this is can I call this the final piece to getting this project out to bid? So this is the Richland Avenue pedestrian passageway that will go between West Green and Porter Hall, and Grover. Thank you. It's been a while since I've been running around down there. And so this is it's just a contract between the City of Athens allowing ODOT to do work on our city property.
Member Cousins, you are correct. Grosvenor is on one side of it, Grover on the other side.
Okay, there we go. Yes, yeah.
But it was West. You said West Green.
I was more of a Bentley person. That's where I hung out.
All right, we have a motion and second for approval of 115-18. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember McGee.
Thank you, President Nisley. I do have a question. I saw somewhere, and I'm not sure where it was, that we were applying for some federal funding for this project. Is that accurate? And perhaps it's been granted?
I had mentioned to council months ago about still exploring other funding mechanisms. Timing-wise, this would line up with the Transportation Improvement District funding, which will fund up to 25% or $250,000 for a project. So this is one within District 18, of which we are in that Transportation Improvement District, that we will likely apply for and seek funding through that funding mechanism. That typically occurs in February, if I'm not mistaken, the funding cycle, February, March.
That must not be it, and thank you for answering that question. I don't know where I saw that figure, but I was under the impression that somehow the city was obtaining some federal funds for this. It's my understanding we have some state matching funds, and the university is chipping in something. Is that correct?
Right. Per previous ordinances that have come before this body, right. There's approximately $1.8 million in federal funding that we were awarded some time ago. And this is the final, I guess, nail in the coffin in order to do that. The LPA agreements are just the contractual agreement that the city ends up signing between itself and the Department of Transportation, which is the administrator of that federal funds. Unfortunately, the Department of Transportation doesn't prepare that document until the very end, after the plans are filed with central office, and then we get that. And in many cases, it's right before we're trying to go to bid, hence the suspension and rushing.
Okay, great.
Does that help you, Member McGee?
Well, it does, but I'm still wondering what the city's share of the project is with that information.
I'd have to look at the previous ordinances that this body passed, because I think it was reflected in there. Is the LPA agreement attached?
The agreement itself, yes, it is.
It might specify in there.
It's just exactly this.
Right. The only thing that then the only thing that we have, the only math that we have, is that the total project is about $3,098,000, and that we're getting 1.8 in federal funds. And I hear what you're requesting, Councilmember McGee, some additional math on that. Right now, what we're doing is moving on the LPA agreement, so I think we can provide the math details.
I'll provide that to you. I'll go back and look at it.
That'd be helpful. Thank you so much. Okay. So we have the motion and second for approval of 115-18. All those any other comments or questions before we do take the vote? Yes, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. I just want to express my support for this. And again, safety is paramount, and I think this will be a move in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11618 is an ordinance extending the pilot residential parking permit program for 1 year, and this is introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Isley, thank you. We had citizen Joan Kranansky attend committee meetings last week to talk about the first year that this residential parking permit was a pilot program in her neighborhood and some other streets in her area. And this it's something that we looking at. We see that it was well thought out. It was something that was brought forward by citizens, and I think the big takeaway that I had from my meetings was that we collected 12 permits, so I think we're still looking to see if this will continue to grow in kind of an organic type fashion, and we can collect more information and see how this works. So we're asking to just extend the pilot for an additional year and then see where we're at in 2019.
Great, thanks. Ordinance 11718 is an ordinance closing a portion of Court, Washington, and State Streets on Monday, October 9th, 2018, from 5:30 to 8 for Trick or Treat, hosted by the Athens Uptown Business Association, and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Isley, I would like to suspend Ordinance 11718.
Second.
And this is the last council meeting that we have prior to October 29th when this event is, so we need to get this moving.
Okay. We have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended.
President Isley, I would like to adopt Ordinance 117-18.
Second.
And this was at committee. We asked about this last week. We kind of had a little bit of an inkling that this was coming up, but now we know for certain it is October 29th, and that is on a Monday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. This is put on by the Athens Uptown Business Association, and this is their trick or treat. And so I'm glad to see that that we are moving to close the street again and open it up for the kids to kind of have a different experience on Court Street.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approving 11718. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember McGee.
I would like to say that I think this is a wonderful event. I've gone to it and participated and passed out lots of candy to the kids who come to this. It's exciting. If you're a student, I hope you have an opportunity to see that side of Halloween in Athens. That being said, I do want to express a little concern that I have as far as the timing of when the parking meters are bagged. It seems to me that in the past that they've been bagged awful early. Perhaps as early as 1 o'clock or 1:30, and if there's any way that those could possibly not be bagged so early so that the citizens who are trying to park and do their business before the street is closed, that could be done. I think it's something that should be considered. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Patterson.
Member McGee, I agree with you 100%. Last year, I believe we started bagging at 3 p.m. I think this year we will be somewhere in that time frame as well, so that we're giving relief to those who are parked, but we certainly don't want to orphan cars within the event area either. And Member Katsas, I know you're sitting there just thinking this is the last one, and it is. Yep. When it comes to Halloween, I have spoken with the Yuba as well as the Chamber of Commerce about the timing, so I'm letting council know that I have really kind of mandated that they bring things forward in a more timely fashion so that we aren't having to expedite things through and suspending the rules and whatnot. So Yuba and the Chamber have heard it, and that they will certainly make sure this is on their calendar a good 4 months in advance to where the timing is better, as well as for the big Halloween event, so that council isn't being pressed to hurry and push ordinances through.
So maybe we can back up all of our ordinances, yeah.
Correct.
For all of the Halloween
Correct.
by a few weeks. That would be a help. Yes, Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. I just want to clarify a couple of things. My understanding is the parking garage will be open, yes, correct? Thank you. And then that's the 5th Monday of the month, so am I correct in understanding that council will not be meeting that night?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and second for approval of 11718. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. The ordinance is approved. Ordinance 11818, an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance, and this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. This is one of those typical boring appropriation ordinances that we have to go through. Allow me to read this so that the public knows where their money's going. Section 1, the 2018 Appropriation Ordinance 15017 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums. $30,000 to Street Fund 220, Transaction Code 200 for materials for repair of pavement and curb on Columbus Circle Drive, vehicle maintenance for plow trucks, and repair parts for leaf removal equipment in anticipation of upcoming weather changes. $15,000 to Street Fund 220, Transaction Code 300 for contracted guardrail repair in various locations. $30,000 to Water Fund 740, Transaction Code 200 for water main break repair parts. $10,000 to Sewer Fund 750, Transaction Code 200 for sewer main repair parts. $20,000 to Sewer Fund 750, Transaction Code 300 for sewer televising, and $8,000 to Internal Service Fund 865.647, Transaction Code 300 to extend the city's server hardware maintenance contract for 2 years and increasing the total appropriations by said amounts. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We now have Ordinance 11918, and this is an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2018 year-end appropriations, and is introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. As the title says, that's exactly what it does. Section 1 states the auditor is hereby authorized to reduce the 2018 appropriations where anticipated receipts are not adequate and, when combined with the carry forward balance, not sufficient to approve the full appropriations of funds. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, that has it for all of the ordinances. We now have an opportunity for announcements and other business. I do know that we have a list of committees that will be meeting next week. And I believe we have Committee of the Whole, and I know we have Planning and Development, Finance, and Transportation. So, full course. We also have a need for a motion to accept the auditor's September 2018 financial reports, which council members have received.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to accept the auditor's reports. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And are there any other announcements? Okay. We now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and services that were not covered on the agenda tonight. Is there anybody from the audience that's wanting to speak tonight? Okay. We will be going into executive session. I'll offer a very brief explanation, and then we'll do the motion for that with a roll call vote. We will be having an executive session for pending litigation and collective bargaining, and we will make a brief break. It's about 8:10 now, and we'd like to give the opportunity for the students and the press to be able to talk with council members and administration. So we'll say 10 minutes once we adjourn, and then we will go into executive session. When we're finished with that, we do open the doors back up and adjourn finally for the evening. So if there's anybody who hasn't had a chance to ask, other questions or needs to come back and wait, there's that opportunity to do so. So if somebody would make a motion for going into executive session.
I so move going into executive sessions for pending litigation and collective bargaining.
Second.
With all council members, the law director, the auditor, the service safety director, and the mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
And actually, excuse me, it's for two items.
For two,
Collective
yes.
bargaining.
Okay.
Okay.
To discuss two contracts, and one is 24031, 24032.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and second. And Councilmember Butler?
Aye.
Reisner?
Aye.
Crowell?
Aye.
Fall?
Aye.
Katsas?
Aye.
McGee?
Aye.
And Grace?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, it is 8:11, so let's say 8:25. We'll give that long for people to ask questions.